Hi, my name is Amy and I am the executive pastry chef for the Arcade Group. And today we are going to be making pecan pie, talking about different types of sugars and syrups that you can use, and making some homemade crust. So right now we are making a homemade pie crust. You can measure the ingredients or by weight, or you can measure them with measuring spoons. I'm going to go by weight because I think it yields a more accurate measurement for what we're after. For pie crust, I like to use half shortening and half butter. I feel like butter imparts the richness that we're after for a nice flaky, delicate crust, and shortening adds the flakiness that I'm after. Shortening also has a higher melting point, which butter has a lower melting point, so as your pie crust cooks, it yields a flakier crust, which is exactly what we're after. So we need 6 tablespoons or 90 grams of butter and 3/4 of a cup or 148 grams of shortening. So we have, in my mixing bowl, I have 315 grams of flour or 2½ cups, 1 teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of chilled butter, which I am about to small dice, 148 grams or 3/4 of a cup of chilled shortening, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So all of my ingredients are in my bowl, and now it is time to incorporate the fat into the flour. Right now I'm using my hands, but in just a second I am going to use a dough cutter. Voila, which if you are using a food processor, basically you would put all of this ingredients into your food processor all at one time, and then you would pulse it in small increments until your fat is incorporated into your dry ingredients, until it looks about the size of a pea. As you can see, it comes together pretty easily. Once my fat is cut into my flour, I am going to add some ice cold water, 1 tablespoon at a time, until it comes together. Small lumps, a couple of big ones, so we're going to do it just a few more times to kind of break down those big fat lumps. All right, so at this point we are going to slowly add the liquid to our pie crust, and I'm going to go 1 tablespoon at a time. As you mix it in, you can kind of tell when it's going to start to come together or not. All right, so that was 3 tablespoons, and I think that might be all we need for this time. As you can tell, at 3 tablespoons, my dough is starting to form a ball and stay together. That's exactly what you're after. So once you get to this step, you do not want to overwork your dough. If you see some small lumps of butter or fat in there, that's fine. That's exactly what you want. As your pie cooks, those little bits of fat turn into the flakiness that you want. Now, at this point, we are going to roll out the dough. I lightly floured my surface so my dough doesn't stick. A lot of times, right after you make your dough, you want to let it rest for a little while in the refrigerator for your fat solids to solidify. We were kind of skipping that step this morning just to demonstrate how to roll out your pie crust. I like to do 1 or 2 rolls in each direction. Flip it, make sure that I'm not sticking to my surface. It's also helpful to keep your dough relatively in an oval shape as you work, because most of the time you're making a round pie. You could be making a square pie. You can do it. I love making doughs and breads from scratch. It's definitely not for everyone. You can easily cheat by buying a store-bought crust. Nowadays there are a lot of really awesome pre-made products out there that can simplify your life a little bit more. Now this is for 2 pie crusts. So what we're going to do is cut this in half. And I'm going to save this one for another day and continue working on this one. Now I bought some small pie shells as well. A small pie obviously will take a fraction of the amount of time that a large pie will take to make. So we bought some small pie shells. Normally a pecan pie takes about 40 to 50 minutes for a 9 or a 10-inch one. These little tiny ones should bake anywhere from 15 to 20. Now once you get your pie dough rolled out, you can see some of the fat that's visible. That's exactly what you want. Once you have it rolled out, you can roll it onto your rolling pin, which means you would roll it like this. Oh, we stuck right there, but that's okay, because if you have a bench scraper or even the back of a knife is helpful to get those little fat bits. And then from there you would pick it up and put your pie shell underneath and then unroll it. We are going to move on to our pre-made crusts. We are going to be making pecan pie, which is a holiday classic. Like I said, you can, we're going to use these little minis because they'll take a fraction of the time to bake. Plus, who doesn't like a cute little mini pie? Bam. All right, pecan pie. We are going to talk about different syrups that you can use. You can use dark corn syrup. You can use light corn syrup. The difference between dark and light corn syrup is light corn syrup has vanilla added to it. Dark corn syrup has a molasses kind of flavor, which is in part from the cooking process itself, and they are both made derived from corn. We have sorghum syrup, which is from sorghum. It has a slightly sour, a touch of a slightly sour taste. You can use honey, which kind of gives you a more natural option. You can also use blue agave, which is great for people who are diabetic or watching their sugar intake. Let's see, maple and honey, backstrap molasses. It's really what flavor you are going for and what sort of dietary restrictions you need. Today we are going to go with light corn syrup. And let's see, we are going to grab 3 eggs. eggs that are whisked together. We are going to add 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup and 1.5 cups of packed brown sugar. Now that my butter has cooled slightly, I'm going to add my melted butter. Next is going to be 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup. Quarter of a teaspoon of salt. All right, so we're looking pretty good. You're going to go about 2/3 of the way full. All right, there we go. We're going to pop these little tiny pies in the oven, and we are going to check them at about 15 minutes. Typically, these little tiny pies take anywhere, depending on what kind of pie you're making, anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes. We're going to check them at the 15 mark. If you were making a large pie, your pecan pie would take more in the range from 40 minutes to an hour, depending on your oven and how much filling you put in there. So we're going to pop these little suckers in the oven. Da-da-da. Little tiny pecan pies. They've domed up just a little bit, which is perfect. As the pie is cool, the filling will set a little bit more, and you're in business. Happy holidays.